Welcome back. Now we are in the main session and we are requesting Mr. Chetan Zaveri for the lecture on sustainable environment-friendly waste management strategy. Mr. Zaveri is a chartered engineer and a fellow of the Institution of Engineers, India, and has over 22 years of work experience in the private and public sectors and academia. Mr. Zaveri expertise lies in managing multi-stakeholder environment projects with involvement from the concept development to project implementation. Mr. Zaveri has managed implementation of solid waste management projects across the country on a private-public partnership framework. Mr. Zaveri is providing transactions advisory service, helping urban local bodies and local governments to develop an integrated and a comprehensive solution to scientifically manage municipal solid waste. He also holds the international status of the International Solid Waste Association International Waste Manager Program. So I request Mr. Zaveri to deliver his valuable lecture.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm deeply honored to be here making this presentation to you on the waste management subject. I would like to thank Mr. Chakrapani, who incidentally could not be able to come here, but I appreciate him inviting me to this forum. I would rather not have a traditional lecture where I'm only speaking and you all are listening, because I feel years of experience you have all in the field. It will be very good for us to participate and we can have a meaningful dialogue. What I plan to do today is give you a perspective of how waste management strategy, which has been a major concern across for major urban local bodies, is concerned, and which also I believe is a major concern of in Kolkata as well. And what I plan to do is take you over to where the issue is in the waste management sector, how it can be tackled, and what Municipal Corporation of Mumbai has done in order to solve this problem on a public-private partnership framework. There could be certain terms in my presentation which may be a bit different or anything else. Please stop me, ask me. I'll be more than happy to share and I can explain you that in detail. Just one quick question, sir. How much time I have so that I will make sure that I can keep 1 hour 15 minutes. So I'll try to finish my lecture in an hour's time, but I'll try to keep maximum time for you to ask me questions. So, even in between also, if you want to stop me, please do so. Urban waste is a major issue. It's a major problem because fundamentally, if you look into it, the numbers here are talking about 45 million tons of waste which is being generated on an annual basis. Now, interestingly, I've been part of Ministry of Urban Development and I go there as a faculty as well. And the numbers have now gone up and we're talking about almost close to 50 million tons of municipal solid waste being generated. Now, if you look into it, urban local body is responsible for managing the waste. And if you look into it from the municipal budgetary provisions are concerned, almost 500 to 1500 rupees per ton of money is being spent on various activities in various segments of waste management, whether it is collection, transportation, treatment and disposal. Predominantly across the board, most of the urban local bodies spend majority of money in collection and transportation. Now, unfortunately, only 5% of the budgetary allocation goes into the treatment and disposal, which is the major cause of concern. And my presentation is going to be focused on that because we have done a lot of work and a lot of good practices. In fact, sir in the morning was also talking about, we have gone into compactors and other things have gone in. Garbage is something where, you can visually see it and there is a problem that, look, there is a problem with the city urban local body, they are unable to manage it. It's not the base of urban local body because end of the day, it is not the urban local body who has created the garbage. It is people like us who are the citizens who create this waste and which creates a problem like this. But if you look into it, whether it is Dhapa in Kolkata or Devnar in Mumbai, the physical features of any dumping ground would almost be similar. I don't even need to name which place it is because majority urban local bodies are facing this kind of a problem where open dumping is being happening. There is absolutely no scientific management of collection or transportation or treatment or disposal, and majority of these places are in the middle of residential area, commercial area, and people who live around that area have a huge issue. In fact, it's not only an environmental health and issue, it is also social issue. And I'll tell you what social issue is about, because people who live around that place are socially ostracized as well, in their family, with their friends and all. There are examples for it. In my presentation, I will kind of briefly talk about that. But if you look into, why this is, I'm talking about, I come from Mumbai. Mumbai generates about close to about 7,500 tons of garbage on a daily basis. Delhi also generates between 6,500 to 7,000. I have been told Kolkata is about 3,500. Or a smaller place like Goa, in Goa there's a place named Bonda which is 50 tons per day because of the number of people are less there. The issue is same because most of the places you have garbage nuisance. Solid waste management is a necessity because only 5% of the garbage is being processed. There's a limited land availability. I don't think any urban local body can happily say that I have enough land with me where I can dispose. And unless and until you properly manage your garbage, the entire 7,000 tons of garbage without being processed would land up into a dumping ground where it would be a major problem because you will be eat out on valuable space. And that's where waste management itself, processing itself makes an important role. SWM improvement, public health nuisance, everybody knows about it. And we've been always talking about mitigation greenhouse gases because most of these dumping grounds eventually lead into generation of methane gas. And you have major issues because methane gas is one of those gases which are part of, critical gases where it would have issues with the greenhouses and all. So what's the sustainable approach? The sustainable approach is you have a planning of integrated waste management system where you inbuilt segregation at source, collection, secondary collection again, transportation, good sorting at the place where your treatment and processing is happening, because whatever you may do at segregation at source level will not eventually, can be 100%. You need to do it at the processing and disposal site. Landfilling of only the rejects, not of the entire garbage. And awareness training which has to be built in at each and every step, and that is what integrated waste management approach is all about. In between, at each and every step, you have to have these 4 R's which have to be built in at each of the cycles. I talked about, segregation of waste is important. You have to make sure that the treatment and disposal is an integrated part of your waste management. The critical aspect here is technology linked to characteristics of waste. And this is something which is very important because if you look into it, I don't need to really give you a lecture because you all are pretty aware of it. Most of the garbage in Indian condition, we have majority of organic waste. And if you look into Mumbai, for instance, between 50 and 55% of organic waste. I believe Kolkata would be between 45 and 50. The problem is, you have to have a technology which should meet the type of the waste you have, and it should make sure that there are other components also in the waste which needs to be processed properly. This is just an example on how the integrated waste technology matrix has to be designed. It basically says that you have mixed waste, which is residential waste, which is good in organic content. That particular material can easily, you have recyclable material into it, that is waste paper, plastic rags and all, which can easily go to an RDF facility. I'm assuming RDF and all, everybody is aware of it. It's a refuse derived fuel. It is one of those things wherein it's also known as a green coal. So the organic component can go into making of a compost, which would be organic manure. But the recyclable component, if you process it properly, it can be utilized to make green coal, and this RDF can be easily be burnt in any of the cement kilns so that it can be used as an alternate fuel. The waste which is generated in hotels, restaurants and all has organic content in it, so it can have either, you can go for anaerobic digestion or aerobic composting and all. The sewage is also one of these other problems which urban local bodies face. And what I'm trying to show in this particular slide is that the treated sewage raw water, it also has good microorganisms which can easily help in increasing the degradation process. So if you combine the treated sewage with your treatment technology, which otherwise becomes a huge problem for you, it's another stream of a problem, can easily be tackled in a combination of a plant like this. This is one of the very interesting thing, which is C&D, which is construction and demolition waste. Mumbai generates about 2,500 tons of construction and demolition waste, which typically goes either in a low-lying area or it goes to a dumping ground, unnecessarily eating away the dumping ground space. This, in fact, could be reutilized and recycled. So it is not part of my topic today, but anyone is interested, after my presentation, I will be happy to tell about how it is done and where these plants are located. So as and when you are, suppose, going to Delhi, I can suggest you where to look into this facility where construction demolition waste is being used to make bricks, the road bricks, tiles and other things. And also it can be segregated into sand and other aggregates. So all this waste, which is one of its major issues, can easily be tackled, but if you need to make sure that you have to have a good technology matrix. Single technology, and which has always been a failure in our country, is single technology is being utilized for all kinds of waste, whereas the waste characteristics are so different that the same technology will not be in a position to handle that kind of a waste. Most important part of is you need to have a competitive bidding, appropriate risk allocation, which means the private operator who comes in, he also needs to be penalized if he's not doing well. At the same time, for any good private operator to come into your facility, he needs to also be given the right kind of facility framework where he feels that he's a partner to the urban local body. And key aspect here is the stakeholders. And the stakeholders I talk about from the source of segregation, generation to until disposal, including the rag pickers, the waste pickers, all have to be involved, including the regulatory body, to make a project to be successful. However, the key challenges for any sustainable project is scarcity of land. I have never come across any urban local body which says they have adequate land. It's usually you have a dump which is already there, which is typically at the end of their fringes of their urban local boundary. Eventually, population has grown, that also becomes part of your own area, and then you are again left with managing that particular dump site, because now you have issues of PILs in our country so vehement that PILs would be filed, people would be asked to stop down those things. Scarcity of land is an issue. Most of the important aspect is waste management, though appears to be a lucrative business, it is not. It is not, because eventually, it's garbage in, is garbage out, which means that the type of waste, if it's so bad, it's all mixed with all silt, C&D waste, and then you tell him that, look, you have to manage this particular plant. he will not be able to run the facility, because eventually he will not be in a position to earn revenues. And any private operator or anyone who would put in money as a capital investment, he'd also look for revenues, returns of it. So it all depends on, so economy of scale is a major issue. That, you have some technologies, unless and until you give inadequate garbage, you will not be able to run those facilities. For instance, incineration facility, anything less than 300 to 500 tons of garbage, any incineration facility will never work. So it is all a mixture of combination of these aspects which becomes challenging. And the most important, because you're all in the hot seat, I would say, public cooperation is a major thing, because you have to take them with you to make any project successful. And this is where my story begins, what we have done for city of Mumbai, and that is the major presentation of mine. Any questions in between? Otherwise, I'll kind of show about, these were the same problems which urban local body in Mumbai, Municipal Corporation of Greater Mumbai was facing. It's nothing new which you guys are also facing, the same people. But they tried to come out of this, wiggle out of the situation. How they did it is something, the story which I'll be unfolding from now. My request would be, if you could turn down the lights bit, it will be much easier for you to see the photographs here, please. This is a story where I'll begin with, where we all started in city of Mumbai. It also talks about the project which I'm going to tell you. I'm very happy to share with you, my friends. This is the first project on a public-private partnership which has received a lot of goodwill, not only from the people who lived around it, but also on a national level as well as on an international level. This project has been talked about because of the size, because of its engineering problems which were there. I'm very happy to share with you, this is first one of those projects of urban regeneration, I would say, where an old dump site was converted into a green park. And that is the story of the Gorai dumping grounds.
This is already completed?
The project has been completed, and I will be happy to share with you some photographs of before, how the pumping ground was. I will also show you what has been done in that, some photographs of that. I also will show you how it looks now.
Funding is given by your body or?
No, I'll also talk about the funding part, sir. I'll talk about it. It's a public-private partnership framework. Okay. Can somebody turn on the lights, or can you gentlemen see the photographs and all clearly? Is it okay? Because this is all, I think will be important from you when you take back, when you go back home. Is something which I want to take you back. This is something is possible when it comes to urban local bodies, when it comes to issues faced by urban local bodies. City of Mumbai generates about 6,500 tons of garbage. It predominantly is coming in from various households. A lot of industries also, waste somehow in clandestine manner would land up into the dumping ground. I'm talking about the numbers which are fundamentally have been recorded in the books. Obviously, there are other numbers which I will not be in a position to share with you, but the quantity is much more than what is projected right now. Those of you who have visited Mumbai, Mumbai is a very typical situation that you have only north to south, and it is surrounded by creek or water on all the sides. It's an engineering challenge, and these are things which I'll be highlighting why waste management in city of Mumbai is why it's so difficult, why it is important. Fundamentally, 6,500 tons of garbage was being developed. It was generated. The place on the extreme right-hand corner is known as Devnar, Kanchur, and Mulund. These were the three. Out of these, Devnar and Mulund were the two sites which corporation was using for disposing of their garbage. The garbage being generated in the western suburbs of Mumbai was all going to Gorai. Do we have project some kind of a laser pointer? Okay, it's okay. इसमें तो नहीं है. The Gorai dumping site was in operation since 1972. It was receiving up between 1200 to 1500 tons per day of garbage. By 2005, Corporation of Mumbai realized that there's a huge problem, challenge of land. We don't have adequate space. Within the same space, we need to really work out some waste management strategy. And that is where we were brought into the corporation, where we did a lot of investigation, studies, and then started coming out different plans, projects for each of these places. My presentation would be only restricted to what we have suggested at the Gorai dumping ground site. As you can imagine, 1500 tons per day of garbage going to the site, the waste had almost gone up to 2.34 million tons of garbage, which means about 5 to 6 story high building. We had about 22 to 24 meters high of garbage dump. I don't think Dhapa would be different.
No, it is already gone to 35.
In your case, in Dhapa. Okay, so in my case it was 24. In Devnar, which is what I have the biggest site in Mumbai, it's about 130 hectares of land. About the project is there since 1930, and we have almost as high as I can be proud of having that much of garbage in our backyard.
How many dumping grounds do you have?
We have total of 3 dumping grounds: Gorai, Mulund, and Devnar. Unfortunately, in our country, unless and until you have PIL and judiciary gets into play, nothing works. In our place, Mumbai, there was a huge PIL, lot of problems. High Court came out, the Gorai site has to be shut down completely, and hence Supreme Court allotted with us a new land of Kanju. And that is where the Kanju site has been brought in, which is a greenfield site. This is a photograph of Gorai dumping ground site, a Google image. What you see in the red box is the dump. Around this is a Gorai Creek, which is filled with mangroves. Now I'm talking about all these things, keep in mind, because all of you are engineers, most of you would understand. You have a dump close to a creek which is tidally influenced. What would happen? The water comes in, takes out the garbage, and then pollutes the creek. You have mangroves. The mangroves are dead because of leachate, which is something what comes out of garbage when it mixes with rainwater. Over a period of time, it degrades, and on degradation, it starts losing out some liquid, which is known as leachate, which is highly carcinogenic, has a lot of metals in it, and you need to process it, treat it before it can be discharged. You also see here these boxes, like match boxes, are residential area. So you can see a garbage dump sitting on a creek which is tidally influenced in a very eco-fragile environment of mangroves, and you have residential area next to it. This is how beautiful the site is. This was a photograph which was taken while standing on the top of the hill. You can see lush green mangroves in Gorai Creek in the background. This was a photograph taking the camera, zooming in. I don't think so it is anything different than what you have at Dhapa. Possibly the degree or the variation may be a bit different. You can see the height of the garbage is almost an angle of 1:1. Again, an engineering challenge because you're trying to work with the garbage with this much height, and when you start working on the garbage, it starts falling down. So slope stability becomes a major issue in the case of garbage. You can also see those lush green mangroves in the earlier slides. None of those mangroves are there because the leachate has destroyed those mangroves. And what you see in this background are those leachate pools which is getting and going into the creek, polluting the water.
Is that a river flowing?
It's a Gorai Creek. It's a creek, sir. Yeah, it's a creek. And it meets the ocean downstream. Similar situation in any of the dumping grounds, you have line of trucks waiting to enter the dump site. making its way out to get its payment done and then dumping it on the site. General environmental condition, what you see is swimming pool of leachate where the stray animals are taking a swim, they go back in the neighborhood, bite people, and there were a lot of issues of these nuisance caused by these wormy pets all getting into the neighborhood. Another issue with most of the dumping grounds you would have is fire. Frequent fires was happening at the sites. You have waste pickers, again, who were all involved in these projects. We had to ensure that some of these projects, we had to take care of these people as well. So while a waste management strategy was being developed for Gorai site, we had to look into and take into account the livelihood issues. That's where the social angle also comes into the play. Site condition during the monsoon, extremely difficult for any compactors or JCB to even work in the thing to make sure to press this garbage waste. The leachate was being collected and was taken off-site in water tankers because at that time there was no treatment plant within the site to process this leachate. So this was another issue which was happening and we had to take care of this particular leachate which was being generated. Security was an issue because anyone could easily walk in and out of the site because there was no compound wall at the periphery to secure the site. Now any of these urban local bodies, you all would be aware that it is, when you talk about a dump site and when they do not have a security manned entrance, anything and everything would be happening within the center of the dump site. In fact, because the urban regeneration, we are talking about urban issues and all, whenever you have time and opportunity and you do Google, you put in a term known as broken window in your Google and search for it. It basically means that for urban officers like you who are managing urban problems, if you have certain places like these which are open for everyone, anyone and any miscreant and happenings would take place and all kinds of underground activities would take place in such places, which becomes an issue for you because you are the manager for these particular sites. Rat pickers, waste pickers, the odor control thing which was being happening was to put in some deodorant on the site to take care of this thing. But there was no physical engineering solution being happening. The spray would happen after the waste truck would leave and take care of the odor nuisance faced by the people. So the engineer, what would you do? Obviously my thinking cap was no more landfills, take this garbage, put it in a rocket, take it to outside and get it out of the site. Not a solution, right? What we did was, we looked into what all we need to do to make sure that existing site only, without taking the garbage out of the site, what all best solution we can give. Because there was no other option for us to take it out. So the garbage had to be managed within the same site, within the same area. And we decided to go for a scientific closure. What is a scientific closure? The scientific closure, it means that your dump would remain as is basis, and on top of it, you provide with some engineering covering materials. These engineering covered materials are known as geotextiles or geomembranes. I have samples for you to have a look and feel of what kind of material it is. The idea is that when you have a dump, people are dumping it in a haphazard manner. So some places you would have mountain of garbage and some places you would have valleys because not all the places the truck would move. So the garbage had to be put in a good profile so that you could cover the garbage with this engineered material. And that is what the scientific closure is all about. But in addition to that, you have to take care of leachate and you also have to take care of the methane gas which is generated. How we did it, what we did it is something which I am going to show you. But the idea was that whatever remediation we do for the dumping site, it should meet the municipal solid waste management handling rules which have been given by the central government. So any technology, whatever we would suggest, had to meet the framework of the Central Ministry of Environmental Forests and the Pollution Control Board of the state. So what we did, first issue was that we had water coming in, the tidal water coming into the site. So we had to make sure the tidal influx is stopped completely. So on the creek side, we put a sheet pipe, a concrete wall, to make sure the garbage does not come in direct contact with the creek water. It takes care of that first issue. The second thing was, I told you that there has, when you're dumping the site, you have mountains and valleys of garbage. So the depressions had to be filled and the surface had to be level. That was the second thing which had to be done. Needless to say, I showed you those photographs where the slope of the garbage was 1:1, and we had to put it in a slope formation which was about 1:3. It would make it a life easier and give us some engineering, because the better the slope is, it is easier to maintain the waste for a long period of time. Leachate had to be collected, so we had to look into those aspects. And finally, the gas, the methane which is generated from the dump site, also had to be captured. I'll take you to each of these aspects of what it is, how it was done. But I think the best thing would be to take you through the journey through photographs, just to show how things were done on the ground. Any questions so far? Okay, good. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you so much. So first thing was to do sheet piling, to make sure the creek water does not come in touch with the garbage. The sheet piling had to be done, and this is how the sheet pile casing, so I won't get into too much into detail because all of you would be aware what a sheet piling is. The sheet piling was done, and it was anchored 9 meters below ground surface because we had to go and anchor it to hard rock. But before all this work, which you are seeing on the ground, could start, we had done almost 6 months of continuous studies on each and every aspect of it. Whether it was waste, we looked into the quality of the waste, we looked into vertical profiling of the waste, we put in wells from the top to the bottom of the garbage dump to see that how much degradation has happened of the garbage over a period of time. We collected the leachate samples to collect and see how much toxicity is there, so that based on that a treatment plant could be designed. We looked into the gas, the methane gas concentration, to look into how much potential power it can generate if we decide to convert the methane gas into power. We also did a lot of geotechnical investigation by doing a lot of boring around the site periphery to go and check out how deep to go to anchor the sheet pipe. So there were a lot of studies which had to be done. At the same time, the entire area had to be, we had to do a total station survey to understand the quantum of the waste which is lying at the site. Because eventually the operator who would be running this facility and doing all the construction work, he has to be paid also. So we had to look into how much waste he has been moving from one site to another. While doing the sheet piling, we had to go almost up to 9 meters. Once the depth was logged up to 9 meters below ground surface, the sheet piles reinforced wrapped with LDPE was put into those holes. This had to be put in like these diapers, because eventually this is going to be in touch with leachate, which will be extremely corrosive. So we wanted to make sure that steel reinforced bars do not get corroded, and hence the entire sheet pile, before it was lowered in, was covered with low density polyethylene material. This was done within the site, taken from one end to another, lowered into this hole which was digged, and concrete was poured. And eventually one sheet pile was generated. This is about 9 meters below ground surface and about 400 mm by almost 900 mm. So an anchor wall was prepared and it ran about 1 kilometer on the side which was the creekward side. The sheet pile casing was removed. So the next thing which we had to deal was to have that vertical profiling. As I told you, it was all garbage and we put in a very uniform way. You can also see that the conditions were pretty tight. I am not sure if you are able to see from the top, but these are high tension lines which are wires which are almost passing through the site. So we had to look into those aspects as well while we were doing cutting and filling job within the site. You also look into the engineering challenge, the amount of space we had to work while we were doing the sheet piling work or we were doing moving of the garbage within the site itself from one end to another. This is what the reformation work which I was talking about. It was taking the extra waste from this particular area and filling it up in these areas so that you get a uniform profile like this on the top. Slope reformation was done using polyethylene machines like these. They would cut, fill the trucks. The trucks would then go out of the site and go to the other side, within the site itself to other side where they would be dumping it and making that area leveled. You can also see that we could not manage to have multiple trucks at a given point of time because here you have a creek, we had to do all this work within the same period of time. So these guys are doing the sheet piling work, whereas polyethylene is being used, JCB is using the cutting the waste within the site and taking it into these trucks. It's almost like a human chain. That the guy from the top will cut, bring it to this guy will move into this, and finally it will fill up the trucks. At one given point of time, there were about 32 JCBs, polyethylene like these, in the site, cutting and filling and making sure the entire area gets reformed. These are some images which I am showing, which shows a slope reformation taking place on the same dump site. It was not an easy task, it was survival of fittest as well.
Which dump site? Which dump site?
Guran. This is all for Guran. The entire thing which is 400 GSM non-woven, non-puncture proof. It acts as a blanket. It acts as a blanket and also segregates the most important component, which is the next component. So it acts as a blanket between, like a chadar aap karte ho. It's like a chadar to make sure that the waste and the CNT material does not come in touch with the high density polyethylene, which is the next material which was put in.
What is thickness?
This is 400 GSM.
400.
GSM.
After laying this layer, clay layer is put.
No, sir. I'll show you what different layers are being put in this. The clay layer was not put in. There was a reason for it in the case of Mumbai. I'll go over that point. So the geotextile layer was put in like this, and it had to be sewed like a sewing job because you are putting up a layer on top of it, and you had to make sure that it would stick onto the surface. So it was like a geotextile layer being stitched on the ground.
Can we use Geojute instead of geotextile?
Sorry?
Can we use Geojute instead of geotextile?
Yes, you have opportunity to do it. The only thing is, sir, it all depends on what kind of slope you have, and also it depends on the cost factors and other things. Okay, and also most important is laying of that. But typically, I would suggest having the jute surface on the top so that you could use it for anchoring of the plants. The next layer was high density polyethylene layer, which was put on top of the particular material. The high density polyethylene has a characteristics that it will not puncture, it is non-corrosive, and it would make sure that the garbage does not come in touch with the rainfall. And that is the most important thing which you have to do to avoid rainwater coming into the dump site. Otherwise, it starts creating the issues of leachate or methane gas. So the geotextile and HDPE, which is 1.5 mm thick, the material which is being passed on, you will get to know the thickness of it, was used as the second material on top of it. HDPE has a phenomena that you cannot glue it, so you have to do it heat fusing. So that is what is known as seaming or hot fusion was done on the side, on once it was laid. The most important thing was to make sure that there is no leakage of methane gas coming in. So we had to pressure test it on the side to make sure the liner is put and it's all tight. The next layer was to have a known as geocomposite. This is a material which is a geotextile, similar to what I had shown across the first one. But there are two geotextile material on the top and the bottom. But in between there's a sandwich of a known as a Geogrid. And what it does, this particular material, it would ensure that the rainwater, when it comes down, it would get channelized and it would not seep in, and it could be easily taken into a storm water drain. So you have a question? The geonet was tied on the side, and on top of it, the next layer was a cover soil. So you can see there were about 4 different layers which were put in, and layer of cover soil was put on top of it. This is something which is being done, where you are seeing the cover soil is being done in the progress. The finished profile, the dump site which you had seen a slope of 1:1, now you can easily see that there is quite a smooth slope. On the slope you can start seeing the finished profile, also seeing the greenery and all which is there because of the topsoil which is there, and there are some plants which has been put on top of it. The leachate, the function of geonet. So geonet is something which will help you to make sure that when the rainwater falls on top of it, it passes through this geofilter, and on this you have this grid. The grid which is easily seen in the other, this one. Yeah. Can you open it up, please? See, correct. So that is a geogrid. So the rainwater falls on top of it and it channelizes through this grid. Really. Otherwise, you will have a pool of rainwater, so it has to move out smoothly. The gas which is there, which has the methane gas, it had to be removed. So we put in high density polyethylene pipes in the thing, and you can actually see there are holes in the center which are there to ensure that the gas which is there can be easily be pulled in. This had to be fused in because it's HDPE material. On the side, you have a vent enclosure because all the gas and all will have to come in to one common place rather than methane gas moving out from different places. It would come in one common place where it would get flared. So we were putting up the manifold while doing the methane gas collection. The compound wall, which was not there earlier, was also one of the things which had to be done as part of it. And the leachate also had to be collected from the side, and these leachate wells were put in, wherein submersible pumps were put in top of it, and the submersible pump would extract the leachate out of it. What you see in the foreground is for the stormwater channel which has been prepared to make sure the stormwater, when the rainwater falls in, it would get collected and then taken off-site.
How the leachate form? That's because the cover already made, rainwater flow over, but why the leachate?
Sir, yeah, the leachate, because eventually, see, the thing is, you have covered it. So no more new leachate will form. But existing leachate, which is there, it has to be removed. Otherwise, we will have a problem that your methane is also stuck and the leachate is also stuck. You have to remove it. So it's like a bottle and you put a straw and you suck the liquid out of it. That is how what we did was put in those leachate wells. Yes, the old leachate. The walkways had to be made because eventually you are having a park and you don't allow people to walk in. It does not make sense. So these walkways were done. Now this material was used, was fly ash and all was used. So it's something which again is a material which has to be thrown out, but it will be recycled, reused. These are steps to go from one bottom to the other, and these were steps leading the way. The vegetation layer had to be brought in because eventually you want to make the site green. This is a vegetation layer work in the progress, and once you have vegetation layer there, you have to make sure that you irrigate it frequently to make sure that these greenery is much better. Would you like to see how the site looks now? This was what a photograph I showed all the issues. First photograph which we saw. This was again what we saw, the first photograph. This is how the site looks now.
But sir, again the garbage will come now.
Sorry?
Again the garbage will come.
No ma'am, good one. This particular site, because of the High Court's order, no more garbage could be accommodated in the site. So this is a site. Yes, yes. So the same thing, what you could see, the garbage hill, the mangroves which were dead, the mangroves have come back again. The before and after photographs, 2007 the work was completed when we started. By the time 2010 was over, the work was completed. The methane gas has to be flared on the site. So it's like a chimney which is there on the site, which would burn the methane which is generated. Some of the photographs you can actually see that how it is now blending into the greenery of the site. One other photograph showing the garbage dump blending into the site. This is now people are able to see when they open up the doors and windows, rather than seeing the dump, they see the greenery from their dump site. The view from the east side, this is a view from the same thing which is within. Very interesting thing which I wanted to show you. In this particular, I wanted to tell you about this. If I have time, I'll kind of talk about this particular project. There, the contractor started the work. He started the work when he said that he would be able to sell the property. Mumbai, it's very difficult to get you can get good job, but getting a house is extremely difficult, and getting it cheaper is extremely difficult. This guy started with a project of 1400 rupees a square foot. In 2007, he did not get any takers to buy that land because nobody wanted to stay near a dump site. He left the project in between. Even after trying to reduce the price from 1400 to 750 rupees a square foot, he was unable to find any buyers. The project, when he started seeing that there is some development happening on the dump site, he came back, completed the building. The last flat he sold it at 4,500 rupees a square foot. So can I tell you, it's an urban regeneration project wherein the corporation is able to get property tax because of higher property tax, because now people are trying to move in and there is no smell, there is no odor, there is no nuisance because of the garbage. This is a photograph which actually shows how the greenery has developed over a period of time. One of the other views of the garbage, and this is the same photograph which I was showing you, where there are stairs leading from one end to another. The view from the top of the garbage, and people coming in and sitting there during the evenings. And though it has not been opened officially for the public because of the fact that you need to be very careful, because eventually you're sitting on a dump site. So we do not want people with cigarettes and all coming in, smoking in that area, because you would not like them to do it. But the corporation has decided that after having some deed restrictions and prohibitions and other things, they will open this particular park for public. It was about 19 hectares of land. Can I tell you, my friends, can I state, we have given back City of Mumbai 19 hectares of green lung space. It's something which is, from urban regeneration project, because of all of you are dealing with such things, you would know, how much problematic it would have been to get this thing growing on the ground, and how socially now you have brought people on the same board. People are now interested to make sure that other dumping grounds also get converted into this.
Project area
19 hectares.
project cost
Yeah, I'll show you. It's about 50 crores has been spent. 50 crores. I'll tell you about all the costing and other things. But sir, how the implementation has happened. 50 crores, sir, you're talking about, has come in also from JNURM. JNURM has funded the project on some of these components on infrastructure development. For this particular project, because we were late to go to JNURM for the funds for the Gorai, we could not get monies for them. But what we have done is here in this case, we got CDM benefits out of this project because there's a lot of CRs coming in. So there was an advance purchase agreement of CDM which was signed between Corporation and Asian Development Bank where monies could come in. 50 crores has been spent because of the fact of the sheet piling, because that's the majority of the cost goes in doing the sheet piling. We are doing a similar project in Pune, almost on the same lines, but the engineering challenges are completely different. This project could have easily been completed about 30 crores, but it was 20 crores of additional thing which was because of the sheet piling which increased the cost. How Mumbai integrated solid waste management plant was successful? It was A, because of privatization. It was collaborations of NGOs and community officers who basically were all involved while this project was happening. These projects had to be thought of in a very well-defined way because you cannot have any haphazard development. You close one side, but then what do you do with the garbage? The question which ma'am asked was absolutely pertinent. What happens to the garbage? So unless you have a different alternate site, you could not have done this closure. Closure is not the only alternate solution because eventually you have to look into availability of area, you have to look into other considerations. There are other ways and means of it. In fact, we look into several host of technologies which could possibly utilize at the particular site before closure was decided, because end of the day we realized that none of the projects, none of the technical solutions available would be able to take care of this huge 19 hectares of problem we had on the site. The project was done on international competitive bidding, but where I think what I want you to take back home is this particular slide. The work was done on a public-private partnership where I said the private operator brought in his technical expertise of doing the work. He also brought in the financial resources to do this work. Municipal corporation, to make this model successful, issued several policy level interventions. A, to make sure that garbage will not get dumped in that site, will have to move to different sites. So existing contracts had to be redrafted for those people who are involved in private collection and transportation of garbage to those dump sites. So they had to work on those. There were separate bylaws which were filled in to make sure that the construction demolition waste, what is being generated, would be easily be taken and it will be processed. It will not go to dump site. Budgetary provisions were made by corporations. Capacity building, just like what we are having it here, was done at every stage with the municipal corporation officers. All kinds of government approvals were taken by us before the start of the project. And that was the critical thing because we wanted to make sure that the private operator, when he comes, he only is ensuring his time spent on executing the project and not chasing the file to get the projects approved from various departments. Because when you have projects like this, we had to get approval from Municipal Pollution Control Board. We had to get approval from Ministry of Environmental Forests because EIAs and all had to be done. The central level clearances. Airport authority also had to be informed and a clearance had to be reviewed because this is in the pathway of the aircrafts. We had to take permissions on the local level as well. So if you look into the host of permissions had to be taken, which took almost a year and a half before the site could be handed over to the private operator to set up this facility. The advantage of PPP format is it increases level of efficiency. It makes sure, because there are checks and balances at each and every stage, so there's a transparency maintained from the project bidding until project gets implemented. People like us, we were involved in project management consultancy where we were ensuring that the work is being done in accordance to what they have given as per their plan. There was a specific company which have been formed, which is special purpose vehicle, but not for this particular project, for the other projects of municipal corporation, which I can discuss with you at a post my presentation. Most of these projects, to become successful, you need to make sure these are done on a DBOT basis, design, build, own and operate basis, to give a concession period of 25 years, which is adequate for him to get returns on the monies he is going to invest. I am talking about the private operator who is going to invest on these projects.
What is the way of return?
Not for this particular project, sir, because this was done on operation and maintenance basis. So he had to do the construction, and then there is O&M for the next 15 years, which he is supposed to do, which corporation is going to give. But the way of return is CDM revenue coming out of, your selling of the CERs. For other projects, you have composting and all. You have obviously selling of the compost. Waste to energy, you have byproducts which would be there, and on top of it, Compilation of Mumbai, which is the next slide which I want to tell, and something which is unique thing which they have done, and that is where I must give full credit to the Corporation of Mumbai, is for one reason, and that is, give it 2 seconds and over about it. The operator's responsibility is to ensure that he mobilizes a fund, he ensures that it meets compliance with 2000 rules, he has to make sure that he manages the site during the period of concession. The operator's right is on the revenues of the products which he is going to sell, and also sharing of the CDM benefits with the corporation. In all this situation, obligation of corporation is to make sure corporation arranges to deliver the waste to the site, provide the land to the people who are running it. It's on a lease basis, so there is checks and balances. The lease agreement is for a period of 25 years, and there's minimal money, about 1 rupee per square meter, which is per year, which is what they would charge from the private operator. And also, corporation's responsibility is to make sure that when he is applying to various banks, the corporation kind of supports him, facilitates the process. They do not get involved in his getting funds, but basically facilitating to ensure that the bank also feels that yes, the urban local body is a partner to a project like this. The funding for this project, it was through the budgeted resources, funding from the government schemes, JNURM and all. Total JNURM funds which was received for the entire municipal corporation project of waste management was about 178 crores, out of which 63 crores came in from the central government, the balance came in from the state, and the funds from municipal corporation. Carbon revenues also came in from the Asian Development Bank. The private operator was responsible not for this particular project, for the entire projects of Mumbai. He has to bring his own funds from the banks would be funding it, so his equity from his own side, debt is going to take from the banks, and then there were certain options for him to go and seek funds at much lower rate from institutions like ILFS. To make this project successful, the last 2 slides I wanted to kind of talk about is to make such projects successful in the corporation. We have to make sure that not only you take care of these compliances or the consents, regulatory permissions beforehand, but you also need to make sure that there has to be some kind of agreements in place with the people who would be buying such products which will come out. So in case of composting, in case of Mumbai, we went out to make sure that there was arrangements done with the fertilizer companies. We wanted to make sure that, and those letters were also issued along with the bidding documents, so that when he is putting up the numbers, he gets the best price, gives to urban local body, municipal corporation in this case, so that he knows that the revenue stream is going to be available once he makes sure he generates a product which meets a certain criteria which has been designed or specified by the fertilizer companies. The power purchase agreements, arrangements to buy these biogas, and ensuring that there is a constant transparency happening. But this is to make the successful PPP model. What Corporation of Mumbai did was they paid the tipping fee. Now this is something which I was saying that I will hold on to the last slide. Such projects, as I in my earlier slide also said, to make such projects, these are extremely challenging. In fact, I always say the solid waste management projects are like having a baby. Conceiving a baby is easy, but delivering a baby is hell to deliver. And that is what people who are working in the waste management projects, you would appreciate that such projects is difficult to execute on the ground unless there is a full-blown partnership between the private operator, corporation and other stakeholders. So besides taking fee, Compilation of Mumbai was also responsible to ensure that the regulatory clearances were all obtained beforehand. The land availability was made sure to the private operator during the course of the project. All the site infrastructure works, with having the boundary walls and other things, were all done by municipal corporation from their own project, so that private operator does not increase or inflate the project fees because of these other civil works, which easily could be done by the corporation's own staff or expertise which they would have. Project funding, budgetary allocation was left by the corporation for their own people to make sure these projects are always ensured with funds. Otherwise, sometimes I have seen projects across the board that they would start with all enthusiasm, and during the period of the life cycle, the funds would be a major problem, and they will, the whole project would go for a standstill. And in this case, corporation made sure that they had adequate budgets for each and every item, and it was spelled out before so that there was no uncertainty as far as budgetary arrangements were concerned. CDM revenues was also there, where it was shared between the private operator and the corporation. To make these projects successful, you have to make sure you have to give a lot of training, capacity building of the staff and the people who are going to use it. There are a lot of IT-enabled systems. I think there is a couple of seminars, a couple of workshops, I think tomorrow on IT systems and all. Those things will have to be integrated to make such projects successful. There is a project risk, so you have to make sure that all these risks are all taken into account prior to setting up such projects. The other thing which I wanted to take and tell about is, every time you cannot talk about having multiple facilities, you may have to think about regional facilities. It's a different topic altogether. I would not spend much time on it, but something on a regional concept is something which is now important, because decentralization is very difficult. Availability of space becomes very difficult. So you'll have to look into a regional concept where there's one common landfill, common waste processing facility for several urban local bodies around an area. Their responsibility would be to make sure they deliver the garbage to this particular place, and only at single place, instead of multiple places waste being managed, you can have it at single place where it will get processed. What recommendations I would say is, to make this project successful, you have to make sure that each and every steps, involve the stakeholders, private operators, regulatory bodies. Make sure that there is complete arrangement of the products which are there to be sold in the market, because sometimes you may have a good technology provider, but he does not have capability to sell the product, and eventually he will not be in a position to earn revenues or make sure the project gets sustainable. I think I'll close my speech here. Thank you so much again for your time and for listening. I'm pretty proud of this project, and I hope you all would have appreciated the hard work which has gone in. And I can say that it was people like you, the officers like you in corporations of Mumbai, who took the ownership to make sure this project was successful. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.